14 teams to go in my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. Moving on to the Toledo Rockets, a team that is expected to be one of the better teams in the Mid-American Conference this year and may very well find themselves in a conference championship game this upcoming season. They are returning some pretty solid talent on both sides of the ball, getting some transfers in that are going to help out this team a lot, in my opinion, I think, as well. But Toledo, yeah, there are still some pretty big losses on both sides of the ball last year. Statistically, this was one of the better teams in the Mid-American Conference last year. Can they do it again in 2022? Maybe en route towards a conference championship game? Or will Toledo maybe not have the transfers work out and ultimately, yet again, miss out on a coveted conference title? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason, which means I'm doing your favorite team. Chances are I've already done your favorite team, so hit the subscribe button. I got playlists on my channel. You can go look through, find your favorite team, but hey, in case you don't find your favorite team, no worries. Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. Your favorite team is on the way, and the bell will notify you when that video gets uploaded. For fans of the Toledo Rockets out there, you guys are going to know this team a lot more than I do. So if you feel like I missed something, you want to add something, whatever have you, please leave it in the comment section down below. I'd be happy to hear what you Toledo fans have to say about this team. Let's move on now. Talking about Toledo in 2022, my third-ranked team in the Mid-American Conference coming into the 2022 college football season. Toledo was a pretty solid team last year. Now, their record, I don't think was fully indicative of how this team played last year because statistically, all around, this was one of the better offenses and one of the better defenses in the Mid-American Conference last year. Offensively, they had 434.5 yards per game with around 34 points per game. And defensively, this was probably the best defense in the conference last year. Had 342 yards per game allowed, with only 21 points per game allowed by this team. So this is definitely a Toledo team that, based off of last year, has a really good offense, has a really good defense. It's no surprise why a lot of people are picking this team to go ahead and win the Mid-American Conference this upcoming season and why they're one of the betting favorites to win this conference. However, there are some pretty substantial losses to this team. Now, Carter Bradley is not a substantial loss, but he is a fairly solid loss for this team. I mean, he was the backup last year, threw 130 passes for 972 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, rocked a 59% completion percentage as well. So Carter Bradley, a proven backup to the starter who does return. You can see his name on screen. We'll talk about him here in a little bit. Yeah, Carter Bradley leaving, maybe a bigger deal than I'm making it out to be, but Carter Bradley leaving probably going to lead to some more minutes for the starter this upcoming year. Their biggest loss on the offensive end, in my opinion, is not a contest. It's the running back, Bryant Koback, who was phenomenal for this team last year on 208 attempts. Yes, that's all he got. 1,400 yards flat, 6.7 yards per carry for those of you who aren't that great at math, and then 15 touchdowns this last season. So losing Bryant Koback is a huge deal to a program like Toledo. They will be relishing having another guy coming in and play like he did last year. I don't think they have another guy like Bryant Koback back there, but hey, who knows? I'll talk about some names that maybe could do that here this upcoming season. Matt Landers leaves, probably is your most talented wide receiver. Now, didn't lead the team in receiving, only had 514 yards and 5 touchdowns, but you also lose a lot more production. I mean, Isaiah Winstead is gone, Danzel McKinley-Lewis, Bryce Mitchell. You lose those 3 names as well. And along with Bryant Koback, that respectively, in no particular order, your 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th leading receivers off of this team last year, and you lose all of them, along with the tight end in Drew Rossi. Those are some big losses at the wide receiver position. They're going to be looking for some guys to step up and make themselves known. In the linebacker group, again, I couldn't find many losses for this defense, but then the linebacker group, Jonathan Jones and Jamal Heinz are 2 names that leave this team. Jonathan Jones had 3.5 sacks, Jamal Heinz 10 sacks, and they were 2 of the top 3 leading tacklers for this team last year. Tyson Anderson is a defensive back that's going to be gone, had 44 tackles last year. And then Samuel Womack, probably their best defensive back last year, 32 tackles, 15 passes defended, and 2 interceptions a season ago. You will be missing his production for sure out of the defensive backfield. Now let's talk about talent they have coming back. Well, Dequan Finn returns as that quarterback. Had 2,067 yards and 18 touchdowns to only 2 picks last season. So Dequan Finn going to be that starter coming into next year. Improve that completion percentage a little bit. His touchdown to interception ratio is great, but he's got to find some guys to step up here in the wide receiver room. And we'll talk about some guys who can do it in a little bit. And notice I didn't say they're losing their leading receiver. Their leading receiver in terms of yards is back. We'll talk about him here in a little bit. Micah Kelly and Jacquez Stewart are a couple running backs that come back for this team. I don't think either of them are going to put up Bryant Koback numbers. In fact, we could see both of them equal parts this upcoming season. They got around the same carries last year. Kelly had 314 yards, 3 touchdowns. Stewart had 250 yards and 8 touchdowns last year. So one of those two guys will be the starter. I assume it'll be Micah Kelly, but I think both those guys will see the field this upcoming year. Devin Maddox was that leading receiver last year with 567 yards and 4 touchdowns. But also you have some guys, coming over to this team that I think could help out this receiver room. First off, Jerjuan Newton does return to this team, should be a prominent role. Jamal Turner comes back, should be that tight end. But you're getting a couple transfers as well. Anthony Torres comes over from Western Michigan as a tight end, and Michael Barkley coming over as a transfer to this team, and he should play a pretty prominent role for this program as well. On the defensive side, there's a lot of talent coming back. Deshaun Holt, Deswan Johnson coming back on the defensive line. Judge Culpepper coming back as a linebacker, defensive line type combination player. He had 2.5 sacks last year. Johnson had 4.5 sacks last year. Deswan Johnson, to be more specific, because Deontay Johnson had 2.5 sacks last year, along with 86 tackles and a pick. You also are getting a familiar face to a lot of fans in the Ohio area where Toledo is located. Hey, Dallas Gant, a linebacker coming over from the Ohio State University. Jackson Barrow is another name that returns for this team. Otherwise, you do get your leading tackler back in Maxon Hook. He returns. Quinion Mitchell is back, as well as Nate Bauer. So there still are names here on this team that are pretty good. And they do have guys coming in that well. And by the way, Deshaun Holt is a linebacker transfer, a defensive line linebacker transfer coming into this team. So when you take a look overall at this team overall, I mean, look, replacing Bryant Koback is going to be no easy task. But the defense should still be really good. I think if Dequan Finn can put up numbers like he did last year at a higher rate, this is going to be a solid Toledo team, and a Toledo team that I absolutely can see winning the conference this upcoming year. Not my official pick. You'll find that out later this week. But as we take a look at the schedule here, a couple easy non-conference games to start out with. You start out with the game against Long Island on a Thursday. Should be able to win there, and then a home game against UMass. Watch out for Ellis Merriweather. Otherwise, it's not a very talented UMass team. And then 2 gauntlets of a non-conference game. I mean, on the road against Ohio State, going to be one of the best teams in the nation this year, if not the best team. A lot of people's pick to win the national title there as well. Then you have a road game against San Diego State, who's been one of the better teams in the group of 5 for the past couple of seasons. When you look in conference play, home games against Central Michigan, Kent State, Ball State, and Bowling Green. Games on the road against Northern Illinois, Buffalo, Eastern Michigan, and Western Michigan. So diving into the schedule a little bit, look, they should start out this season 2-0. Starting out 2-0 is imperative. And they're not going to beat Ohio State in the shoe. Although Dallas Gant, playing his former team, we'll see what kind of performance he has there in that game. But they are not going to beat Ohio State. It is just not happening. They're one of the more talented teams in the nation. I don't necessarily think they're going to beat San Diego State, although I do think that is a very, very interesting game to watch. I think it's going to be a lot closer of a game than a lot of people think. San Diego State has a really good defense, but Toledo's bringing in good defense as well. Now, there are some pieces that San Diego State needs to replace on that offensive end, but there is a lot of confidence in this offense with Braxton Burmeister coming in as quarterback. There's still some holes to fill there on the offense, in my opinion. That's going to be a very interesting game. Toledo and San Diego State, they're in non-conference play, although the Aztecs do get that game at home. In conference play, I mean, look, there are just some tough conference games. Central Michigan, they're going to be one of the better teams, if not the best team in the conference. And then Northern Illinois. That's your first 2 conference games. Northern Illinois won the conference last year. And both of those, I believe, are divisional games. So they're going to be very, very important to the race in the division. I don't think Buffalo's going to be very good. Should be a win. Ball State, same thing. Bowling Green, hey, you get them at home. They're the top team returning production, but you should be able to beat the Falcons. Kent State, that's going to be an interesting game to watch there. Kent State does have to replace their quarterback, otherwise have good players in the skill corps. Need that defense to improve from last year as well. Eastern Michigan's a team that's going to be around the bowl game threshold, as is Western Michigan, although both teams do have some things to replace, but Toledo's got to go on the road to play both of them. An interesting schedule. Let's predict it. Now, I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based outlook, tell me predict the team's record. So if the game's in red, I just don't see you winning the game. If the game's in orange, I still don't see you winning, but it is college football and upsets can happen. Yellow are your 50-50 or high upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games that you should win, but you got to watch out for teams on the other side of the ball, and games in green, I have you winning. So Long Island should be able to get that win there. UMass, I don't see why they shouldn't be able to get the win, although Ellis Meriwether can put up yards on the ground. Not a very talented UMass team otherwise. They're not beating Ohio State on the road in the shoe. It's just not happening. Sorry, Rockets fans, but you're not beating the Buckeyes in the horseshoe this upcoming season. On the road against San Diego State, I mean, I'm going to lean towards the Aztecs. They're going to be the favorite there in that game. But San Diego State is a team this upcoming season that I think with Braxton Burmeister at quarterback, the offense is going to be better. There's no doubt the offense is going to be better, and the defense is still going to be really good. This is a Toledo team that has a lot of talent on it, and I think can compete in that game. I'm leaning towards the way of the Aztecs, but I think Toledo can make that game close and make that game competitive. When you take a look in conference play, I mean, Central Michigan, Northern Illinois, I mean, that 4-game stretch right there. On the road against Ohio State, one of the best teams in the nation. On the road against San Diego State, one of the better teams in the group of 5. And then your 2 toughest conference games. In fact, the 2 teams I don't have videos for on my channel yet in the Mid-American. Hence, they're above Toledo in my power rankings. Those are 2 very, very hard. Even you can throw in that game against Kent State to make up that 5-game stretch is going to be very, very hard for Toledo. I think it's important they win 2 or 3 of those games to be in the hunt for the conference title race. Otherwise, they should be able to beat Buffalo, Ball State, and Bowling Green. I think they'll be able to win those. Eastern Michigan and Washington State are 2 games that, well, I think if Toledo struggles this upcoming year, or maybe if Toledo finds themselves in the race for the conference, for a conference championship appearance, they can't take either of those 2 games lightly. I think Eastern Michigan and Western Michigan, while they respectively have to replace a couple pieces on those teams, look, those are 2 teams that can compete, are going to be right around the bowl game threshold that Toledo can't take lightly, and they have to go on the road to play both of them. When I look at the schedule, and when I look especially at that 5-game stretch I mentioned earlier, this is going to be a tough schedule for Toledo. But with Dequan Finn there, with Devin Maddox coming back, the defensive talent they have coming back and coming in for this team, I do think Toledo is going to have a really, really good year. I have the Rockets at 8-4. I like what Toledo has. I like the numbers that Dequan Finn, if he can put it up at a more, not necessarily more effective clip, but if he can do it over a longer period of playing time, like maybe he gets a lot more snaps, this is going to be a very, very lethal Toledo offense. I think it's going to be a good Toledo defense, and the Rockets definitely will be able to compete in the Mid-American Conference this season. That's my prediction on the Rockets, mate. Please tell me what you guys think about this team, and be sure to like, comment, subscribe. It helps support the channel. And remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.